this for a minute. All right. So as I said, that song has been stuck in my head, and it took me a while to realize what it was. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed that. But what about love? So as Cody said, I'm Chelsea. I'm the Director of Creative Engagement at Causeway, and we're a local nonprofit that helps people solve problems in their own communities. And in my work there and in other work that I do, sometimes I'm physically designing things on the computer, and other times I'm designing systems and strategies to help people solve problems. And in both of those situations, I just get a lot of joy out of simplifying complex things and making them more accessible to more people. And a process that we use a lot at Causeway is this design thinking process. I know a lot of you are probably pretty familiar with this kind of thing, but if you're not, design thinking is a term that was made popular by the design firm IDEO and the Stanford Design School. And it can be used to design all sorts of solutions, so not just things you might typically think of as design, but any sort of program or product or really anything that you're working on can kind of go through this process. And we use it because it really focuses on the user or the person that's being affected by the thing that you're designing. And it's extremely important to do that, especially when it comes to social impact work. But I realized that this way of thinking has kind of really infiltrated my brain as I was making my first round of this talk and thinking about this month's topic, love. I realized that the way that I was thinking about it kind of perfectly fell into this process just naturally. And in design thinking, you always start with a how might we question. So you might ask, how might we reduce youth violence? Or how might we help families in Highland Park access healthy food? So this time I asked myself, how might we love people better? And as you saw, the first step in the process is empathy. And that's really the core principle of design thinking, is to not just go off the assumptions in your own brain, but to ask other people what they think, especially the people that are going to be impacted by the solution that you are designing. So I asked 17 people to complete the sentence, love is a blank. And these people are some of my closest friends, roommates, ex-boyfriends, crushes, coworkers, mentors. They're all affected by the way that I love, and they're people whose love affects me as well. They're writers, designers, moms, dads, divorcees and newlyweds, lesbians and Republicans. And as you can see, I got a myriad of responses. Some of my favorites are love is an impossible mystery, a perfect response, an unambiguous good, and a word not to be ashamed of. So I was relieved to see that they reflected my conflicting feelings about the word love. I think love is simultaneously something that I put so much hope into and something that I'm kind of deeply terrified by. It's simultaneously so simple and so complex. So I was glad to know that I'm not alone there. I think we all kind of carry around a lot of baggage with the word love. But I kept kind of getting to this crossroads where I wondered, is love a feeling or is love a choice? Is it something that happens to you, or is it something that you play an active role in? And I've always kind of been such a war of head and heart. It's fascinating to me to see the way that logic and emotions kind of share the driver's seat. But I've learned from experience that leaning on one and not the other at any given point is kind of a recipe for disaster. I think it really has to be both. When it comes to love, whether it's romantic love or loving a stranger or a difficult roommate or an annoying coworker, or even something like loving your job or your city or your place in life. I just wondered who's running the show. Is it your head or your heart, your logic or your emotions? And I think in our culture, the beginning of love is almost always first a feeling. We get butterflies when we talk to that guy or that girl, so we ask them out. We're really encouraged to do what we love when it comes to choosing a career and to not settle for anything less. And I think that's a beautiful thing, to sometimes let your heart lead, but I know that my heart has led me astray sometimes, and that makes me really thankful that my head is there also to kind of guide me. So I wondered, as love grows, can our mind help our heart make smarter decisions about it? So I'm going to ask you to try something with me. How many of you have watched the TED Talk about the power pose? A few people. Okay, so stand up, everybody. Legs hip width apart, hands on hips. So does that feel nice? So this researcher had people stand in high power poses for 2 minutes and measured their hormone levels before and after. And she found that the position of their body legitimately raised their testosterone levels and lowered their cortisol levels, which made them feel more confident and more comfortable. So I think what we learn from this, what we can take away, is that our bodies and our actions and our choices can actually change our feelings. And I think that's true when it comes to love too. You guys can sit down. That wasn't 2 full minutes, but you can try it later in the privacy of your own home. The author C.S. Lewis says, "Do not waste time bothering whether you loved your neighbor. Simply act as if you did. As soon as we do this, we find one of the greatest secrets. When you're behaving as if you loved someone, you will presently come to love them." And one of my favorite stories in the world seems to illustrate this. Is anyone familiar with the Christmas truce of 1914? A couple people. So during World War I on Christmas Day, British and German soldiers chose to set aside their assumed differences and stop fighting, and just for that day to meet in the middle of the trenches in no man's land. And they played soccer, and they cooked food together, and they even sang Christmas carols together. And this blows my mind, because it's just inexplicable to me that we spend so much money and lose so many lives at war, and that's such a complex thing, yet something as simple as Christmas carols can help people see the humanity in their enemy. After that day, a lot of soldiers had to be moved to different posts because they could no longer fight each other when they had taken that step and that action of showing love had created real feelings of love and understanding. And I really love that story. But if our actions can change our feelings in a positive way, then the opposite must also be true. So the picture on the far side is from the Stanford prison experiment. It's a psychological study from the 70s that's very questionable ethically, but really fascinating. Participants were randomly assigned as either prisoners or guards, and over the course of 2 weeks, as they kind of played into these roles, real emotions developed. So even though the prisoners had done nothing wrong and the guards really had no authority, their sort of hateful actions towards each other created these real feelings of hate. So I think what we can take away from both of those stories is that your actions can change your feelings for better or for worse. It's been an interesting month to be thinking about what it means to love people, as I've kind of watched some horrific things unfold in our country. We live in a really interesting point in history where for the first time we can really be watching these things almost as they're happening. And there's some horrifying things on the internet right now, but you might have also seen this video. You guys are really going to have to hang with me with the technology right now, but we'll see how it goes. And no sound. But that's okay. Has anyone seen this video? A few people. So it's a video of Black Lives Matter protest and a Blue Lives Matter protest meeting in the middle between their protesting post and talking about things, and there's lots of hugging. And there's some really beautiful things being said. So if you haven't seen it, then you should go home and watch it. But that one's not so beautiful. But So I think it's pretty obvious that this situation is at least somewhat encouraged or contrived by the media, but I really wondered how it affected those people. I love just overhearing the simple conversations that they're having, like hugging and introducing yourself to someone so different from you. And I wonder if taking that external action changed their internal feelings. And I have to believe that it did. I think people on both sides probably went home that night feeling a little more connected to humanity and a little bit more understanding of their opposition. And I'm not at all saying that one exchange of kindness is going to fix a really broken system, but I do believe that love is arguably the most powerful force in the world, and it's within our power to choose it every single day, and that's kind of amazing to me. But why is that so much easier said than done? I think, at least in part, it's because we have a really hard time letting go of our assumptions. It's not fun or easy to think that we might be wrong about something or someone, because that means we might have to change some things about ourselves and our beliefs and our behaviors. At Causeway, we see over and over again that the hardest part of helping people find real solutions to problems is getting them to let go of their assumptions. People come to us with solutions they think they've identified and they're really excited about them, and that's great. But if they haven't already, we encourage them to take a step back and to go through this process and to start with empathy and talk to people that might be using the solution that they're building. And if people do that, they often come back with all of these things that they've learned and new things that they've heard. But still, some people decide to ignore those things and move forward because listening to them means that they'll have to completely change the solution that they already spent a lot of time and energy developing. It's much easier to kind of dress your solution up than it is to go back to the drawing board and change things. Similarly, I think we spend our whole lives building our belief systems and our principles through our experiences and our education. And when someone threatens that, the natural response is aggression and conflict. And beliefs and principles are a really good thing, and standing for what you believe is a really good thing. But the person standing on the other side is also being held up by what they believe in. And I think that if you get to know the motivations behind what that is, what life experiences have led them to these beliefs that they feel so strongly about, you might realize that you're not quite as different as you think that you are. But that requires us kind of swallowing our pride and listening well, and those are really hard things to do, especially in situations where emotions run really high. But if we don't, then I think we keep running into the same problems over and over and over again. Probably one of my favorite moments in my entire life so far was a couple years ago. I was in New Orleans with two of my best friends, and we were on Frenchman Street, which is known for really great music, and we kind of came across these probably 10 or 12 teenage boys all playing trumpets. And they were so good, and so they kind of immediately had this huge crowd of people surrounding them, and it was a crowd of kind of the most distinctly different people I've ever been in, just really different ages and races and backgrounds and socioeconomic statuses and styles, just very different people brought together by this music, and everyone was dancing together. There was lots of hugging. It was just this kind of beautiful picture of equality, even if just for a minute. And I was looking around and kind of taking it all in, and I noticed this sign at the top on the light pole there that says, "Think that you might be wrong." And I started to cry because I thought it was just such a beautiful picture of what happens when we think that we might be wrong about people. And a place that I feel really similar to that in Chattanooga is at One Table. Have any of you been to One Table? Yes. So it's my favorite thing that Causeway does. It's a Thanksgiving potluck in the middle of Martin Luther King Boulevard. And it kind of came to be, this will be our third year doing it. So a few years ago, we had just given out a grant asking how can we create a more connected city. And so we were having a lot of conversations about the things that connect us and the things that separate us. And as our staff was walking to lunch one day, we were just kind of observing the distinct differences between Miller Park and Miller Plaza, two areas of downtown separated by Martin Luther King Boulevard. Miller Plaza is kind of known for business and innovation, and Miller Park is kind of known for being a place where lots of homeless people hang out, and churches will come have free meals on the weekends, and also a place for protest and people that feel like they aren't being heard to kind of use as a platform. And we just kind of wondered what happens when we invite everyone to a table that's smack in the middle of those two places. So as we do with a lot of things at Causeway, we just said, let's give it a try. And so the first year, 700 people came, and last year over 1,000 people came. And part of my job is communications, and One Table makes that so easy. It sells itself. People get so excited about it. It's not hard to get people there. And I just think my favorite thing about it is that everyone is coming to the table as equals. And I've talked to lots of people who may not have family in town who think of that as their Thanksgiving meal. And it's the most diverse view of the city that I've ever seen. It's CEOs sharing meals with homeless people, and the stay-at-home mom in Hickson sharing a meal with like the hipster millennial artist. It's 1,000 people choosing to set aside the things that divide us for just a couple of hours. Lately, I've been thinking pretty similarly about the space right outside these windows in between the Edney building that we're in right now, which is such a symbol of prosperity and innovation, and Patton Towers, which is so often kind of a last resort for people in tough situations. But how often do we walk by that little triangle with the benches and see people sitting out there that live in Patton Towers and think that we know their stories, and we think we know what got them there and how they live their lives, maybe what their struggles are, but we really won't know until we ask them, until we figure out what their experience has been. And I think we have to be willing to think that we might be wrong and put aside some assumptions to really, really get to the truth. So since the Edney building opened, Causeway and CoLab and the Enterprise Center and a few other people have been going to Patton Towers every few weeks for their bingo day, and really just trying to build some relationships there. It's a slow process, especially because during bingo they get really into the game and don't really want to talk to you. But we're just trying to be there consistently and get to know people. We don't really know what's going to come of it, but for now we're just trying to be good neighbors. So if you live or work around here and that's something that you would like to come to, let me know, because we would love to have you there. But to kind of bring it back in and wrap it up, the next to last step in this design thinking process is to build a prototype. So if you remember from 4th grade science, it's kind of like your hypothesis. It's your best shot at what you think will work based on the research that you've done, interviews, brainstorming, that kind of thing. So these are my 4 steps, my best guess at what it might take to love people better. First, I think we have to choose it, even when we don't necessarily feel it. So it's your metaphorical power pose. Next, I think we have to invite them to the table as equals and listen well. And finally, I think we have to set aside our assumptions and think for just a minute that we might be wrong about someone. And the final step is to test it. So I'm going to ask you to help me test it. You don't have to dive off the deep end and do anything you're really uncomfortable with, but just next time you're finding it hard to love someone in your day-to-day life, whether that's a stranger that you pass every day or a coworker that you're so sure is against you and everything that you stand for, or a significant other when they're being really particularly stubborn about something. Choose love, listen well, and think that you might be wrong. And just see how that step and that action might actually change your feelings and change the situation. I'm going to be trying it too, so let me know how it goes, and I would love to hear about your experience. And I think we can take some questions.
All right. Thanks, Chelsea. That was fantastic. I think we have a little bit of time for some Q&A. If you could rephrase the question after people ask it,
Okay.
that'd be great.
Yep.
Just so everyone can hear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Lucky's got the first question.
Chelsea, do you have any book recommendations for us?
Oh, man. Definitely yes, but I'll have to think about that. Maybe we can do a book rec tweet later. But off the top of my head, you should all read this book called Incognito. That's about the way that your brain works, and it kind of covers all sorts of different topics. It talks about love. It talks about just tons of different things. I read it 3 times, and I learned something different from it every single time. It's really kind of fascinating. So.
you're obviously in a leadership position coming up with these ideas and wooing people into creating opportunities like One Table to happen.
Mm-hmm.
What have you found to be like a good way to make other people think that that's a good idea and help you create that?
I see. So what is a good way to have people come alongside you when you're working on community projects? I think it's very simple, but honestly, probably the biggest thing is inviting people and inviting people specifically. I think in a world of social media, it's easy to put something out there and say, everyone's welcome, come and do this thing with me, but a personal invitation goes a long way, especially if you can be specific about why you want that specific person to be there. And other than that, I think it's also, people underestimate how hard it is to really articulate an idea in early stages. I've been at Causeway for 2 years, and I feel like we're just now getting to a point where I feel really confident articulating what we do and why we do it. And Causeway is always there to help if you have something like that and you need a little bit of help kind of articulating and really clarifying why you're doing what you're doing, because I think that goes a long way to get people on board with you.
I think we can go for one more question. I'm in chill NPR morning voice right now, so it's like the monster truck voice turned down to 4. I'm sorry.
I know that a lot of people are probably afraid of failure, and so I'm really interested in hearing about a time that you just absolutely 100% failed, and what you learned from that going forward.
Oh man, so interested in hearing about a time that I really failed and what I learned going forward. I fail constantly. I think I kind of mentioned when I was talking about One Table that so many things that we do at Causeway are an experiment, and I love that about our team, that we're kind of not afraid to give things a try and see how they go, and if they do fail, to learn from them, figure out what exactly went wrong, and move forward. But I think that we recently have been working on developing a class and a curriculum off of this design thinking method. And we kind of mulled over it for a long time about what might be included, how we might teach people this process. But after kind of just staring at it and tweaking it within our office for a couple months, we decided that we have to take our own advice and test it. And I felt really confident in the things that were included in this curriculum that we had all spent so much time on. But we ran a pilot class and it did not go great. It really, these principles seem simple, but turned out to be a lot harder when you're working with people coming from all different directions who don't have a really common language and coming from a common place, and we hadn't really foreseen that coming. And so right now we're kind of in the stages of going back to the drawing board. I think really the key is just knowing that happens, and it sucks to quit after that. You've already put a lot of time into it. So we're taking our own advice and kind of going back to the drawing board, doing some testing, learning from that, and moving forward.
Anybody else have anything they want to ask Chelsea? If not, cool. Thank you so much. Round of applause for Chelsea. Sometimes high fives just die in space.
Sorry.
Oh man. Well,
I have no idea.
it was a sneaky high five. Thank you guys so much for coming out.